almost up on every platform. I'm connected to, so I stream on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter all at the same time.
That's amazing. I've never done that before.
Yeah,
How'd you do that?
so I stream to a third-party service that then goes and distributes it to all of the other platforms, and I connect my accounts to it. So, yeah, really cool. Sweet. Okay, so we are connected. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Another week, another live stream. And this is something I'm super excited. This is something I've been wanting to do. I've been thinking about this for like a year. This is something that's been just bugging around in my brain for a long time. I've been trying to find somebody to come on and talk with me about this. And I think the timing is actually really, really great for me personally because I'm currently going through a transition in relation to my mental health. And so today I'm super excited to have Darcy Roane on. She is a mental health consultant who I stumbled across, and I just thought everything about what she was doing made a lot of sense, and I reached out and she got back to me. And so today we're going to talk about a whole variety of things. But one of the points that I want to get into is, or the specific thing that I've been thinking about is, we don't have a lot of good everyday language to talk about our mental health in a comprehensive, helpful way. And that lack of language not only makes it hard for us to communicate with others, but it also makes it hard for us to understand ourselves and what's going on with our own selves. And to give like a concrete example that I think is just really straightforward. If I break my arm, I don't say I'm in poor physical health. I say I broke my arm. But we don't have that kind of similar precise language for mental health. And I get that it's maybe a little bit more difficult because it is not like visual in the same way. Like mental health can manifest in our behaviors, but it's not like, oh, I can look at your arm and I can see that there's a cast on it. Right? It's different. It's not the same kind of immediate visual feedback. So, Darcy, I'd love to give you an opportunity to just introduce yourself, talk about yourself a little bit, and your expertise or any thoughts that you may have on the topic, or if there's something different you want to start with, or whatever. It's a pretty open and free discussion. You and I just get to kind of hang out, and I'll let you know if there are cool comments that come in, and we'll just go from there.
Sounds great, and I thank you so much for having me, and it's so nice to meet you. I also looked at your profile, and I love everything that you stand for, and so I'm thrilled to be talking with you. I am, like Sass has said, I'm a mental health consultant, which means in this situation that I'm basically here to help people skip the 9 million steps you have to go through to get the help that you really, really need, and to use plain language to truly get where you want to go with that. I focus mainly on people who are suffering from bipolar disorder and narcissistic abuse, just because that's what I've lived with my entire life. And so someone who's kind of a lifer like I am has learned a lot of stuff about navigating the mental health system the hard way. And so what I want to do is make sure that no one else is taking 25 years to get the correct diagnosis like I did. So I think that one of the things that is unfortunate about mental health and making sure you get the care that you need is that a lot of the stuff that you say that you think is very clear can often be misconstrued, which can lead to a diagnosis that doesn't suit you. And the medicine that you might get or the therapy you might get is not appropriate. So it's okay to, say, yeah, I don't think this is working for me, and really advocate for yourself. But when you're down, it's hard to do that. So I just want to kind of help the underdogs get to, the gravy where they need to be, where they can get this kind of taken care of as quickly as possible.
That's so cool. Yeah. So I'm now remembering, because I originally messaged you a while ago, and now I'm like recalling all the like reasons that I was like just so intrigued and was like, oh, I need to send her a message. But yeah, so you like you said that sometimes the words can be misconstrued because the language just doesn't come across clearly. Can you give a couple like like common examples you come across of like things that people say but then are then misinterpreted?
Yeah, absolutely. My first experience personally with a psychiatrist was when I was a freshman at University of Oregon, and I was a psychology major. So I walked into the psychiatrist's office with my textbook saying, I think I'm bipolar. I have every single one of these things. And at that point, it was so rare to be bipolar or to be diagnosed bipolar that he's like, no, you're just depressed. And for 25 years, we focused on the fact that I was just depressed. And in reality, I was bipolar the whole time and taking medicine that can make those things that I was suffering with just really exacerbated. So that's just one example. But yeah, sometimes I think doctors will hear or psychiatrists will hear one symptom and then assume one thing when you could be three or four things, or maybe not that thing at all. So it's just something that it's tough, and I do find that you have to advocate for yourself or bring someone who really knows your situation. If you're in crisis, have someone with you that can truly advocate for your needs and talk about what your symptoms are, what's showing up that are not the things that are not really like you in everyday life.
Yeah, and there are a couple important points I want to touch on there. Number one is you said that that at the time bipolar was not diagnosed very often. I think it is important to recognize that like we haven't figured this all out yet. That like there is still a long way to go. We have come very far, but there is still so much, and that we are going to continue to go through this process. Our understanding is going to continue to evolve, and down the road, 20 years from now, we'll have people getting diagnosed with things, and they'll be like, yeah, back in 2021, we had no idea about it, and that it seems a little crazy to us, but like, it's okay to recognize, like, yeah, there are still some things, and we're working on it, and we just got to do it together. You also you said again about advocating for yourself, and that actually really connects, or having somebody else who will advocate on your behalf. That's really important. That really connected with me because my mother has been incredibly supportive of me through this process that I've been going through. So I was diagnosed with severe depression about a month ago, which was like very unexpected to me. And then when they like went through, well, here's the sheet, here's how we diagnose it, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, yeah, I guess all of that is right. And it was like, but I wouldn't have gotten to that appointment if my mother didn't like stick on the phone with me and say, okay, make a 3-way call with 211, find the information, then we're gonna call them, I'm gonna stick on the phone with you, I'm gonna wait on hold with you, and we're gonna get this sorted. And she did that remotely, and there are certainly people who remote isn't enough, and they need somebody right there by their side. And I know that I've also advocated for others in many situations when they struggle to advocate for themselves, whether it is something more serious like, with dealing with some kind of medical thing, or if it is something as simple as just like, they're suffering or they're struggling with some form of anxiety and just some general social situation, and they just need someone to help them finish their sentences. And I think that is like a really important thing, that like we can all be there for each other in different aspects and leverage our different strengths to help out each other. Like this collective communal effort is important for all of us, and it is how we all heal. So yeah, those are some really powerful things I just picked up on from you.
Thank you. And I'm so sorry to hear that you've got the depression, but you know what? I'm so thrilled that your mom sounds like a great mom. And, sometimes you only need that one key person in your life that's just always going to be there. And I like the idea of being there for each other. I will say, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but a lot of the time when you're in crisis or, you're not yourself, people kind of take a hike and you are feeling more alone than ever. And that's terribly unfortunate. So I would just say, for the people who do come to you and say, what can I do? How can I help? Just have very specific things to say to them. Come to an appointment with me, or, help me tell the psychiatrist what's going on so that they can help give me the right drug, because I can't get that out of my mouth right now. Or let's go for a walk once a week, because even though when you're depressed, getting outside and exercising sounds horrible, it really does help. So you can just have those friends who really are caring and going to be there, have their stations. One of them's going to check in with you once a week on the phone. One of them's going to drop a meal by once a week, whatever it is that you can take or handle. But just a lot of people don't know what to do or how to support you. So sometimes you kind of have to guide them and tell them. Because I think people do care, but I think they also kind of want to distance themselves from the stench a little bit. Maybe they're scared that they're going to wind up depressed one day, or something else that seems uncontrollable. But yeah, we really have to look out for each other. It's true, because it's just, talk about a pandemic. It's just, the depression is off the charts for every country in the world right now. And so we just, need to make sure we're getting the help we need, but also helping the people we love get the help they need.
I really liked what you said about, when somebody asks how they can help, it's like having some specific examples. Like, listen, like, I assume there's some website page somewhere that just like, here are some things that like you can say in response. So that way you don't have to come up with it, because that could be really, really hard. And just having it listed out and just saying, I'm just going to pick this one and just say it. Or if you are a person who is offering help to somebody and it seems like they can't get the words out, then instead of, if, you said, how can I help? And they're struggling to respond to that in a concrete way. Give concrete examples. Say, well, here's what I can do. I can do this. I can do that. And, like, people have done that for me before, and I think about all the times where it was like, I don't really know, and then somebody, my mother, who knows me very well, will give a specific example of like, can I do this for you? Would that help? And sometimes the answer is no, but in a lot of cases the answer is yes. But right. You also don't need to know somebody very well if you just list off the things that you can do for somebody. If you know that I always cook extra, so I always have an extra meal, or if you know that you live nearby and it's easy for you to stop by and just take a walk with them. Or if you know that they don't have reliable transportation, but you have a fairly open schedule and you can drive them to an appointment, or that you can be that voice for them in their appointment. So you can make those specific offers just based on what you have too. But so I do kind of want to get into like this core question though of, Is there language equivalent to "I broke my arm" that people can learn and to help describe what they're experiencing?
Yeah, what I've learned to do, I literally will Google whatever it is that I'm dealing with, whatever the symptom is, so that I can talk about it in depth, so that it doesn't sound like a bullet point, so that they are clear in the fact that I've looked into this a great deal. So there's that, basically, taking up for yourself in terms of, like, had I at age 18 known, like, it's very clear that I'm bipolar, I would have pushed so much harder. Like, no, I really, like, take a look at these symptoms that I had last summer. That was clearly mania, and this is clearly depression. So, I think that, yes, I think you Google it. I think you walk in with the symptoms that you're talking about. And if you are going in to say that your whatever medicine they have you on is not working terribly well, that's when you also have to be very, very strong and advocating for yourself, because a lot of people will gaslight you. They want that medicine to work so much, and they don't care about the hefty side effects and that sort of thing. Like, obviously they've learned how to do this. This is their job, but I just remember being told personally when I started taking lithium and Seroquel, 2 big bipolar drugs at the same time, and gained 50 pounds literally within 3 months. And so they tried to tell me that, oh yeah, you know what, you're nearing menopause. I'm sure that's what's happening. It's menopause. I'm like, in 3 months, 50 pounds? There's no way that's, not due to the medicine. So just, you have to be really informed, I think, to any kinds of these appointments, and able to really plead your case. And that's, again, why I do think it's a great idea to have a sidekick come in there with you, because you're going in when you're in crisis and you're a mess. And so it's really hard to, not go in there and feel very vulnerable and have someone talk you into something that you kind of have the gut feeling is not right for you.
Yeah, that I think is probably a story that a lot of people can relate with, for sure. I think about so my dog that Leslie, she was a beagle, and I remember, she was 12 years old, and she started showing some symptoms of something, and to me it seemed very clearly like a neurological problem. And I took her in, and they were like, "This is not neurological. This is cardiovascular." I'm like, "Are you sure? I haven't left this dog's side in a month. Like, I take her everywhere with me now because she's not doing well." And I got dragged around. I wasted over $1,000 on stuff that didn't work, and finally, one of the clinics had her see a neurologist, thinking it was their idea, not mine, and the neurologist diagnosed her with a brain tumor in less than 10 minutes.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it was like you said, I knew what was going on. I don't need to be a medical professional to know the difference between a breathing problem and a neurological, she loses her balance or something. Like, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
And I wish I had advocated more strongly, and if I had somebody by my side to just get me over that hump to say it, I probably would have then stood my ground. But I needed that extra push. And I recently stopped a medication that I was on. I was on Strattera for ADHD. I started it in the summer. So it's a non-stimulant. That was really important to me because I can't do stimulants anymore. And I think I was already heading into depression, but I think that made my appetite worse. I think it may have made my depression worse because I got a lot better, and I'm excited to tell you how I did that. But then last week I decided I wanted to stop taking it, and I felt like there were still some things that weren't totally back to normal. My brain wasn't fully functioning. My appetite was still low. I was feeling better, but I wasn't feeling the pep in my step that I was expecting to. And I stopped it, and then after it kind of wore off over the next week, I felt a lot better, and it was like, I'm glad I just made that decision, and I listened to my body and I listened to my mind, and I knew enough about it to know that was not a dangerous move for me. I totally get that. That doesn't apply to every medication ever, right? If you're immunocompromised or something and you have something that's literally keeping you alive, right? But I knew enough about the situation to know that wasn't right for me. And it is tough because, as you pointed out, a medical professional, it's this is their profession. And I think about the professions that I've had, and about the vast majority of customers think they're right when they're wrong. But every now and then you get the one who kind of knows what they're talking about. So you just kind of assume that applies across the board, but medicine is such a crazy field, particularly now. I mean, the expanse of knowledge you have to have is just beyond the scope of any single human at this point. And it's not to say that I don't trust medical professionals, but I think there is something to say that around look, medicine might not be as advanced as we think it is. The human bias really plays in more than we probably imagine it does, and you really only spend a small amount of time with your doctor, and listening to your body and your mind is a really, really important thing. And as you said, having somebody next to you to help advocate with you is really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad to hear that you went off of that drug and that you actually felt better from it. See, that's the thing. Sometimes we have these hunches and it can go great. But then other times, for people who are bipolar, for instance, sometimes the medicine have you feeling so good that like, oh, I don't need to take these pills anymore, and then you just and burn. So you have to be careful of that too.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, for the most part, I'm definitely a poster child of the drugs, the medicine. But I do feel like there needs to be a lot more sort of East meets West, sort of more holistic approach to things than just taking drugs and having very little contact with your practitioner. So, I think we have a long way to go. I'm thrilled and grateful that we have what we have, but I do think there's a long way to go in terms of, I don't know, just if I even mention something like acupuncture to my Western medicine doctor, it's like there is zero overlap between those two schools of thought. So I just wish that we could kind of get closer to, I don't know, bridging that gap a little bit.
Yeah, I have previously talked about everything in moderation and like a balance of holistic and clinical medicine. Both have done fantastic for me. I have Tourette syndrome, I have obsessive compulsive disorder, and I have taken a sort of holistic approach. I used to be on a lot of medications, but I've taken a more holistic approach that has led me to being nearly symptom free.
Wow.
Yeah, I kind of accidentally did it, and then later found out that other people did the same thing that I figured out. But that there's still a lot of focus on the medicine when it's only just now like the therapy is starting to be a part of it. But so that's where his holistic health really helped me out. That like I just made my own decisions and I was able to make it work. But then in the clinical medicine, I have another anecdote where I had a kidney stone. I went to the ER, whole thing, and then I was going in for regular checkups specifically related to that. And then, they tested me and they did a test and they were like, hey, you have a kidney stone, you need to come back in. And so we discovered that I had a kidney stone before I had any symptoms. And so then I was able to get surgery. We were able to plan it out. I was able to get it removed. They were able to send samples to a lab, and we discovered that the chemical makeup was different from what we expected. And then I was then able to adjust my diet accordingly, and I've yet to have another kidney stone since.
That's amazing.
And that's totally without anesthesia and like a lot of modern science. I was working with a urologist who was like currently having an argument with the whole rest of the country about whether or not a stent was needed for this particular procedure, and he was like, you don't need it. There's such a major improvement for the mental health and the recovery of the patient that the minor bit that you get from having a stent in there isn't worth it half the time. And I didn't realize this till after the place, but it's so he was hugely advocating for me. This is all this is at U of M in Michigan, University of Michigan Hospital. So it's very much thanking the clinical side of medicine for all of that. And so very much we need both, and we need the balance.
Yes, 100%. Oh, I think that's great. Oh my God, I'm so glad you didn't have a kidney stone. I understand that's as painful as giving birth. I can't even imagine. Oh, yeah. So, well, I'm glad that that's worked out for you well.
Yeah. And so I wanted to, you talked about Googling symptoms, but I mean, even to that extent is so when you say symptoms, it's how is there any kind of good framing that people should have? Can you give some examples of the actual things that you would type into Google, or that you would that people might type into Google if they experience certain things?
An example that's on a totally different sort of branch. When I first was dating, after I'd been dating my last boyfriend for a while, I was like, oh my God, is he a narcissist? And so I ended up Googling that, and oh my God, he checked off every single thing on the list. And so that's one example. If you're in therapy and you're able to throw around some of the terms surrounding that whole mess, it's helpful because you want to be able to kind of get as much bang for your buck with any kind of doctor or therapist visit as you can. But so that's just one example. When it came to like I said about my own bipolar disorder, I just happened to be in school at that time and studying, they called it manic depression then. And so, yeah, I checked off every box. And so sometimes you just luck into it. But I think that even if you're a teensy bit of a hypochondriac, you might Google, okay, what does it mean if I'm doing this, that, and the other? What's happening if I am not sleeping, not eating, and I am perseverating on some certain topic that never would have bothered me so much before. For me, it's more of like a checkpoint so that you can figure out, okay, if I relate to too many of these things, then I can honestly say that they are really relevant in terms of my behavior, then it's time to see someone. But often we don't make that decision until we check off every box and we're truly in crisis. So I think that if you have any history of mental illness or anything of that sort, you want to inform the people around you, the people who love you. Now, if you see me going into this state or another, just bring it to my attention and let's make sure that I go and get help sooner than I might, ultimately decide to on my own. Because, as long as the people that love you and are around you and witnessing you can see it early enough, then you should be good to, get yourself an appointment and get the ball rolling. But the last thing you want to do is wait until you're in just crisis mode and, oh my God, it's an emergency right now. I'm having suicidal thoughts and I need to be on drugs by 2 weeks ago. So it's a slippery slope and it can all kind of unfold pretty quickly. So you just want to keep tabs on your own behavior, be aware of what behavior might be, not so great for you or not so great for people who you have come from. Like, mental health often comes down in waves from different family generations. So if dad's bipolar and you're showing some symptoms, go get it looked at, that sort of thing.
That's it. So, all right. So, a couple things. I'll first say the family history aspect of that. Like, it's a really good point. It's really important, and like this is going out to parents and aunts and uncles and grandparents to talk to your kids, your nieces, your nephews, your grandkids about those things. And of course, it's your choice if you don't want to share, but it can make a really big difference in their ability to understand what they're going through. I see it as an act of love. So when I was diagnosed, after I was diagnosed just months ago, I then discovered that it was actually like genetic through like a lot of my family, and I didn't know that. And it was something, and it was like, if I had known that ahead of time, I would have been way more prepared for this. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't blame anybody. Again, as we said, like this is the culture around this is evolving, and it's like positive encouragement. Let's understand this better. Like, let's do better. Like, it's crazy that it took until I was 14 years old to be diagnosed with Tourette syndrome. I had a moderate to severe case my whole life, and there was just no awareness. People just didn't know. Like, I can't even blame my parents. How would they have even known to, like, the connections weren't there. And so, like, awareness is, like, a huge part of that. So this is just a request I'm putting out to folks watching. Please, try to find out, if anything you're working with is genetic, and please try to let your descendants know, because it can really affect them. The other thing, I'm trying to remember what it was. I'm blanking now. What were you talking about before you mentioned, coming down from family?
Just what we were talking about, being able to find that language to go in and be able to say, this is precisely what I need from you, as a practitioner. Let's not argue about it. This is how I feel, and this is what I want. And just having, nobody prepares you for going in and feeling like, oh, you're really not getting your point across, because they just want to believe what they want to believe. Not in every case, but in my experience, it's kind of been that way. So you just want to be careful with that. And I just wanted to touch on what you were saying about your family and, see, like, yes, this all is very heritable. I think the sad thing to this day is the fact that people kind of kick anything about mental illness, they sort of kick it under the carpet still. And I think that's more of the generation before us than the one we're in now. But there's still so much stigma attached to it all. And maybe that's why no one ever spoke of it before in the family. And my dad didn't tell me he was bipolar until he was almost 70. And so, my God, it would have made so much sense. It would have been helpful to me along the way to know that. But it's just like, I think a certain generation was just taught to, like, we don't discuss these matters outside of the family or at all, and we're gonna keep it quiet because it's shameful. And
rugged individualism.
What's that?
I think the rugged individualism of American culture, I think, fits into that too. Like, I don't necessarily know that this is the same in every culture. I'm only really familiar with American culture. So I imagine there are cultures around the world where this maybe is more of an issue, and cultures where maybe it's less of an issue.
Yeah.
No, but so yeah, the other thing I want to talk about, or I wanted to kind of mention or highlight, is like, okay, so the things to kind of look out for when you're thinking about how to talk about your mental health is, like, you can be a little bit proactive with it about, like, hey, I can go find the language. And how you start with that is, okay, observe what your behaviors are, and observe, like, what your thoughts are. And even if they don't seem abnormal to you, because you've been living with it your whole life and you just think that, like, this is, like, pretty typical, whatever, don't be afraid to put that in your search too. Is it typical behavior to do this thing? And you might discover that, yeah, it totally is. All right, cool, no big deal. Like, now you have that comfort and knowledge that, like, this isn't a thing. But so focusing on your behavior, focusing on looking at the reactions of others, which may be on them, it may be on you, it may be both, it may be neither, it may just be, like, relationship stuff you have to work through. But looking at the thoughts that you have, and as best as you can, because this is a little bit abstract and fuzzy, but the feelings that you have, the best language that you can find for them, and trying to use those things if you search using those concepts, that should hopefully help lead you to the right thing. And there are so many forums too that you can just, like, post, and you could be like, look, I can't find the thing that fits all of this, but here's, like, I've taken the time and I've listed all of it out across all these different things, the way that so and so reacts to me when I do this thing, and the way that I perceive it, and how I think about it, and the feelings that I have, and, like, what do you think the dynamic is? Like, there are lots of folks out there, period, there are lots of folks out there, and so those experiences are shared. Just about every experience that has ever been had is a shared experience. There are others out there who have gone through it, and there are others who will find what you've posted, who are looking for that thing too. And maybe you're the first. Who knows? The first to post about it, but not the first to experience it. So I think that's helpful, is, like, okay, listing those kinds of couple things: the behavior, your reactions, other reactions, your thoughts, your feelings, and listing them out. That is a really powerful way to search.
Yeah. But I think you're right. Being able to check in with other people online, I think it's been I feel like social media has been a great friend to mentally ill people. You're right. You can find any kind of support group. I can't even count how many I'm in for bipolar, from narcissism and narcissistic abuse. And yes, there is, even if you're the first one putting it out there, someone always relates to you. And it just is so great to not feel alone with it. I liken it to 12-step a little bit, because in terms of, like, the sober community, you would normally, if we didn't have such an issue with COVID right now, you would be in a room with these strangers talking about stuff that you all relate to. And I personally have been through that experience for a long number of years. And this reminds me of it, getting into these social media support groups. It's just kind of the same thing, quite frankly. And it's so enriching and so helpful, and we all are so very supportive of one another. It's very endearing. Like, you don't really have to be alone with it like you might have a generation ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I've enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, and there's like, the internet isn't all good, but you take the positive where you can get it, and I think it will continue to evolve, and how culture operates on this. I mean, it kind of hit us like a ton of bricks, and we didn't really prepare for it. We didn't really discuss it, or we weren't really like, how is this new mode of communication? How should it be handled? Like, we did that with radio, and it wasn't perfect the way we handled it, but at least we had the conversation. We never did that with the internet, so it's a little all over the place, but you're right. The groups you are looking for are out there, and you get to make your own decisions about what type of content you engage with.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it may feel like, if you're just you're on your Twitter feed and it just seems like everything is dread and awful and the world's falling apart. Like, you can choose to find a space that is like focused on positivity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the more you engage with those, is like the more the algorithm will feed you back into it. Like, I recently started engaging more with a group on Facebook that posts wholesome content, and now that's showing up in my feed more than some of the other stuff. And it's like, I'm glad to have more positivity. That's just what I need right now.
Right.
So
you can work the algorithm in your favor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that was really helpful. Was there anything like specific that you wanted to talk about, or?
Touching on the whole mental health thing again, just because it is such a mess right now. I just want to make sure that that people are aware that you do have to be there for the people that you love. You can't run off, you can't run away from it. Not to be a lecturer, but it is so very important to make sure that the people you love know that they're supported, that you would do anything for them. My daughter is currently in a friend group, and 4 of her friends have either tried to commit suicide or are very much having the suicide ideation. Right now they're 16. So that's just horrifying to me, but I'm also really incredibly impressed by how they're all there for each other. They're in a group chat. They are checking with each other all the time. They're having sleepovers all the time. So I just love to see that. And I think we have to call in the troops, call in our support when it comes to feeling horrible, just same as you would if you had cancer. You need people to rally around you and help you out. So I kind of want to just make sure that we're dropping the stigma and that we're, jumping on the bandwagon to help the people going through it, to make sure that they're covered and that they know that they've got the people around them that love them, that would help them with anything they need.
Yeah. Yeah. And but I did want to tell you about, I said I was going to tell you about how I worked through the depression, or and what that experience has been like for me in the recent past. So a big piece of it was I discovered a place called Clubhouse. So part of Clubhouse International. Have you ever heard of that before?
Is it I don't know what it is. No, a podcast kind of situation?
No, not. So I go. It's called Austin Clubhouse because it's in Austin where I live. But Clubhouse International. So there are hundreds of different locations, and it's kind of hard to describe, but it kind of bridges the gap, or hits this middle ground between, like, covers this step in between, like, leaving the hospital and like getting back to total normal everyday life.
Cool.
And so how it works is there's like, you have like a space, like a facility or whatever of some kind. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. They make lunch every day for $1. We make lunch every day for $1. So they are intentionally understaffed. And so additional work needs to be filled in by the members, and the members and the staff are equal. So we all do all of the work. For members, it's 100% volunteer, always, all the time. You can come in and go whenever you like. You can participate in whatever work you like. But a really important, really to us, like the big thing is like working side by side with others has a rehabilitative effect. It is a kind of a magic of a recovery process there. We say it's about the process, not the product, and so we do all sorts of things. So like I said, making lunch is just one thing. We have like our own garden where we grow, food that we eat. We had cauliflower and green beans this last month or whatever. We have like a snack bar that we keep open, and somebody like mans and they like take everything's like a quarter or 50 cents or whatever, but like they practice like the cash register skills. We have a front desk to greet people. We do reach out calls. I love this. So once a member, always a member, and it's free for all adults, any adult with a mental health diagnosis. Where we have over 1,200 members. We just go through the list and we just pick people who haven't been in a while, and we just call them up and we just check on them.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, because we know that, like you said, it can, even if like what you need right now is community or connection, it can be hard to initiate that phone call. And so we come from the other side, and we call people up, and we'll leave them voicemails, and we'll tell them what's going on at the clubhouse this week, or what social events we're doing, or what lunch we're having today. We might invite them to come in, or just see what's going on, and we'll have folks who even like they'll just say like, I just got the voicemail and that was amazing for me, just to receive this voicemail that like somebody was thinking of me and they called me up and they cared and they wanted to know how I was doing. But sometimes it gets people to like come in too, which is super great to have help people go through that process to come be around and get away from the isolation or whatever. I mean, there are other things too, like we're making. I just interviewed a new staff member like on camera, and that's going up on the YouTube channel next week. And I've like helped with like interviews for like new staff, and we have like a weekly email that goes out that we all help with, and we have like meetings and work order day, and we do, like there's plenty of stuff to do, and it's like that process is helpful, that side by side. So it's a really cool place. I've been spending a lot of time there. That's what I've really needed, is I've just needed to be out and about around people and engaging in a community and connecting and doing things. And so that's just something that I found really helpful. So Clubhouse International is the international organization. There are a couple hundred locations in the U.S. So that might be a cool thing to look into. I might have one or two of my Clubhouse folks on the stream right now watching. Feel free to say hello in the chat.
I'd love to hear that that's out there. See, that's totally something that I would recommend to my clients in a heartbeat. I love the sound of that. Maybe they have one in Portland. That's where I am. Who knows?
I think they do. Yeah.
Do they? Yeah.
I wanted to just tell you about that, because I thought that's something you might like to just know about. But also, like, it was so interesting because that sheet of paper. Actually, I think I have it here. Let me grab this prop. Here we go. Yes, I have a prop. Okay, cool. So this when they said you have severe depression, and I was just barely starting to come around to the idea that I might be depressed. But then I was like, severe depression? They're like, yeah, severe depression. Yeah. But the thing that they didn't show me this, I grabbed this in their like hallway. There's this sheet, and it says, out of these, to reach a diagnosis of major depression, at least 5 of the following symptoms, including depressed mood or diminished interest or pleasure in usual activities, must be present nearly every day for 2 weeks or longer without an alternative physical cause. There are 9 things listed, and I remember going through it the next day, and I was like, oh, I have like 8 of those.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And then...
That's awful. You sound great. Not that it would, not that one talk or live stream is going to, take everything away from you, but you sure seem to be handling yourself very well.
Yeah. Well, I've always been able to do that too, but 2 weeks later, I looked at it again and I was like, oh, I don't have any of this.
Oh no, that's amazing.
Yeah, I literally was like Googling, like, how fast can you recover from depression? Like, is this allowed? I don't think this is how this works. So, I'm very fortunate that I was able, that I've been able to recover. Um, and I've been adamant about continuing to spend time at Clubhouse because obviously that is working for me.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so that's been like my experience. And everybody's experience is unique for sure. I was talking to somebody today at the Clubhouse who told me she didn't get diagnosed with bipolar until she was 43. You know, and for her it's this thing about like she feels bad because she feels like she wasn't able to handle things with her kids and stuff, and like I said, there just wasn't awareness back then, and she's turning 70 like this like next month or something. So yeah,
and here it is giving back to the community. That's amazing.
So yeah, so it's so look, it's still, we're still on this journey, and we're always going to be on this journey together. So that's really powerful to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we're all kind of here at the same time for a good reason. I feel like maybe we chose to perhaps be here to work with each other on certain issues during this time period. You know, it's a blip in the screen of all of time, but I feel like we're all here to do something together, something meaningful, if possible.
Yeah, it's still just as real, whatever perspective you take. Sweet. Well, I didn't really have much else. Other than I was talking to one of the staff at Clubhouse about this concept that I had about like the equivalent to like foot, leg, arm, like breaking, spraining. I have a cold, I have this, I have that, and thinking about like he was like, yeah, I think some people like he's like the language has gotten better, but there still isn't like this concrete like model of like here's how you can put it together. And I was thinking about it, and he was talking about like yeah, we could get like stakeholder, like every kind of stakeholder in on that conversation. So psychiatrists, psychologists, patients with with every type of different mental diagnoses, counselors, consultants such as yourself, regular community members, family members, to start picking apart this idea and saying, okay, can we build a model that like people can understand, that's sort of a map of the brain in a way, not from like this like deep neurologic, like neurochemical perspective, but more from just like an understanding who you are and how you feel, and develop language, even if that includes creating new words, but then being able to put it in this presentable, understandable format and way that then we can make graphics about and do like an education campaign and be like, and get it into school curriculum and be like, hey, we have developed this usable model that anybody can use to help better understand themselves and communicate what's going on with them, and then to translate it into every language too. That's really important. But so that's just something I started talking with him about like this week or whatever. But yeah, I think that something like that, I mean, that requires somebody to be like driven about the issue, to like gather this group together and be like, this is the vision, this is what we're trying to put together.
Right.
So I don't know, that's just something that like I said, I've been kind of thinking about this for a long time, and the idea of having all these different stakeholders in there I thought was really cool. But like, I don't know, what do you think about that idea or that concept, or what input do you have on that?
I think that would be so cool. I was talking with a friend recently. I was trying to help her work on her resume because I was in the staffing industry for a long time. But anyway, she is an engineer or a research design person, and she puts together all of these different, I want to call them diagrams, but it's so much more than that. It's almost like these 3D image topographical maps of how we can fix social injustices and how we can put these things together. But I've never heard of someone doing that for psychological issues or how we can communicate those issues. I think it would be the coolest job ever if I could go back in time. That's exactly what I might love to tackle. But yeah, I would certainly put together a think tank if I were you and get something like that working, you know. But I think it's a super cool idea. I think we need to get communication on this particular issue just moving as fast as it possibly can. And if certain images and you know, different ways of putting things work better for the masses, then great, let's get on it.
Yeah, I mean, I am busy with so many other. I don't know how much you saw me talking about voting method reform. That is a huge focus of mine right now. I recently became a board director for the Equal Vote Coalition. But I think this is like, I'm only 26. I got time. Maybe this is one of the many things I'll do in my life. Maybe I will get this done someday.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
you know, but it doesn't have to be me. If somebody else stumbles across this and like, I have the resources and I have the connections, this is a great idea, just nobody thought of, and I want to make it up. Do it. You don't need my permission. Get it done. This is an open source idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've never heard that idea before. You should keep it.
Should spread it. Yeah, I want collaboration. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Darcy. Really appreciate it. This has been fantastic. This will be available permanently on YouTube, so if you ever want to share it or whatever. The video might be a little choppy because my machine isn't the best, but the audio should be good, and there have been live captions the whole time, which is great. But other than that, I got nothing else.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. It was very nice to meet you. I'm so glad you're doing better. That is so hopeful. See, and you can tell your friends, you know, that you're working with and volunteering with. And that's a very hopeful thing for someone like me to hear. So I'm sure it will be for a lot of other people too.
All right. Well, thank you, Darcy. And I'm going to end the stream.